Hi, beautiful souls. It's Tan back here again today with you on this Astrology, Human Design, and Gene Keys channel. And I'm here again today with Adriana, who is an astrologer in the Tan Astrology team, and of course, your astropsychologist. I just made up that word. So, yeah, we've been doing this series on astropsychology, and now it's the third episode that we're on today. So, we're going to be talking about depression today, which according to Adriana is one of the second or one of the most common, what would you call it? Like psychological,
mental issues
there. We did an episode a couple of weeks ago on anxiety. So if you haven't watched that, I highly recommend that you check that out as well. So I'll provide a link to that up above in the description box below. And then you can come and watch this one, which is on depression. All right. So Adriana, I think we can get started by looking at the word depression and what does that actually mean when you have depression?
All right. So again, I'm going to start with the basis, which is psychology, and the DSM-5, which is the manual for diagnosing mental issues. So we have a spectrum of depressive disorders, and they can manifest in different forms, depending on the specific symptoms and duration and, how they actually manifest in one's life. Because there is a difference between going through a depressive episode, dealing with dysthymia, which is like having persistent cycles of depression, or having a personality disorder associated with melancholy. Mm-hmm. So, melancholic a melancholic disorder. Personality disorder. Mm-hmm. It's when the person traits associated with the feelings of depression. But it's tricky. And what I really want to talk about today is dealing with depression. Mm-hmm. So, being through an episode, and I'm going to touch a little bit on dysthymia, which is, dealing with cycles of depression.
Okay, so you're not going to be addressing basically the second one, which is the melancholic personality. You're addressing mainly the other term, which is the depressive episodes.
Yeah, because it's, I can touch on that with some things in your chart that can trigger that to happen. But, that's very specific, and it's a little more tricky to go about.
Okay. So what is depression? Like, what's the symptoms of depression, having depressive episodes, like you mentioned then?
Well, I'm not sure if I mentioned this. I gave the example of the first man, right? When I was talking about anxiety. And the first man that went hunting and was starting to...
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I want to give the example of someone that, experiences a first loss, because depression has a lot to do with mourning.
Okay.
Mourning something. Mm-hmm. And is giving up on the present because you're thinking about the past or someone that has passed. And what happens when you are mourning is that you become closed and you go inside. And when you go inside, you can overeat, you can not eat at all because you're not thinking about your survival. You can become colder, so your body can don't waste so much energy. A lot of things can happen when you deal with depression. So, yeah, should I start on the symptoms?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Because this is a big list. Well, if we're diagnosing a depression, the baselines have to be having depressive mood and loss of pleasure or interest in things that you usually have pleasure and have interest in.
Mhm.
And the feelings of sadness, emptiness, or feeling like everything is pointless. So there's a lack of drive. And then we have a whole list of symptoms like, we have with anxiety, which can be, having significant weight loss or weight gain. You can sleep more. It's hypersomnia, or not sleep at all, having insomnia. And this is actually interesting. You can be more agitated, like you're moving faster or slower. And usually when we deal with a patient that has depression, they are very slow. You can clearly see that they have slowed down. And in the personality disorder, you're going to notice that they always have been like slow talking and they have deep voices. They're just like always on the low, like they're preserving their energy. Yeah. And you can feel extremely tired all the time. Because the tendency here is for your body to collect all of the energy they have, right? Because you're going into the cave, you're going into winter mode, you're going into preserve mode. It's going to be really hard to think, to make a decision, because you're just worn out. And yeah, I mean, physically, so many things can happen, like your body temperature lowers. It's crazy. And, you can manifest a lot of issues, physical issues, because your body temperature is lower.
Right.
So, issues with the thyroid, and this is where things get, really hard, because you can manifest physical diseases. And, I don't want to go too deep on that, but yeah, when you deal with something on the mental level, a lot of things are going to happen to your body.
Right. So I have a question here. Like, if we go back a little bit, you said that depression happens when somebody is thinking about the past and they're constantly thinking about it. So would you say that depression is a mental, a mindset? Because it sounds a little bit like somebody who can't move forward. There's something in the mindset that they have to keep ruminating on the past. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's complex, because like anxiety, we need depressive states. Like if we lose someone we love, we need to go into that mindset. Because if you skip depression, not the disease, but if you skip depressive states, you're not mourning. So it goes a little beyond mindset. This is actually something we need to experience as human beings, but on a healthy level, right? Because of course your body is going to have these defense mechanisms for you to feel sad, because you need to feel sad sometimes, right? If you lose your job, if you lose someone you love, if you feel like your life is not going in the direction that you're supposed to, you do need to go into that introspective mode, right? Into that mindset, because it's necessary for you to reevaluate and to spare your energy. Well, save your energy and put the attention on yourself.
Wow. Yeah.
That's, you're thinking of the past because you're reevaluating things. Like if you lose someone, you have to reevaluate your whole life. I think this is so cute to say, because, well, the person is not cute, but it's cute how, if you're familiar with Harry Potter movies and Horcruxes, how do you say, when my fiance? Yeah, my fiance.
Yes.
Had this idea of, when we create a person, when we have a kid,
Yeah.
we're like creating an Horcrux.
Okay.
Because there is a part of our soul in there.
Uh-huh.
And when we love someone so hard or something so hard, we
Uh-huh.
create Horcruxes, right? So when we lose that, that's like losing a part of our soul, right? Because soul is not something that is, in this body, right? It's something way more transcendent. So when we lose those things that are so special to us, it's like dying. So we have to respect that moment.
Yeah, wow. That's so deep. I completely understand that. But I'm really glad that you mentioned the usefulness of being in some kind of sadness or some kind of depression from time to time. So when does it become something that you would need help with? Like you would need to see a therapist. What's the line there? Like when is it okay to be in it and when is it becoming a problem?
Yeah. When does it become, how do I say it? Pathology? It's like when does it become a disease? I'm not
Okay.
I'm not trying to translate from Portuguese because I'm thinking in Portuguese. All right, so it becomes a disease or recognized as a disease when it's a timing thing. So when you have cycles of episodes of depression, you have dysthymia. So if you're having these episodes of feeling all of these symptoms that I mentioned, this is dysthymia. A depression episode can last from 2 weeks to 6 months, if I'm not wrong. And, something that is like, we're talking about mourning. I'm trying to find the word for mourning. Grief. Yeah. So when grief can become a disease, but it's like 2 years. So that's more because grieving is a very complex process, and it has its ups and downs. So we have more time to experience that. But yeah, it's a question of timing. It has a lot to do with timing.
So you're saying that if it lasts too long and you have too much of those episodes coming back, then it can really become a problem.
Yeah, I mean, of course, if you have these symptoms right away, you have an episode, right? If you never had them and you're having them now and it's been like 2 weeks, you're going to be diagnosed with an episode for depression. But, if you're feeling this over and over again and you have like 3-4 episodes in a year, you're having dysthymia. And if it's something that it's so attached to your core and your traits, then we talk about personality disorders.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So we're getting to the part where a lot of people are interested to find out. What would you say are, if there are any indicators in the birth chart that may show someone is more prone to have depression or depressive episodes?
I have a long list. Like I said, this is a very prevalent issue. So there are a lot of things that can trigger. But what I'm about to share with you, these are not. If you have these placements, you do not have to experience.
No, it's not the end all be all of things.
Yeah, but it can trigger. Like, I'm gonna start with the obvious. Scorpio energy. So, I mean, if you have a lot of placements in Scorpio, your mind it's going into those deep thoughts and experiences. And, Pluto and Mars energy is a very complicated energy for us humans to deal with. But then you have hard aspects to the moon, like between moon and Saturn. You have, a debilitated moon can struggle with finding the right place for feeling emotions. You have a debilitated Jupiter because, when you're philosophy.
So you mean like moon in Capricorn or the moon in Scorpio, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not, like I said, it's not defining, but yeah, you can experience those lows. A debilitated Jupiter, a debilitated Mercury. So Jupiter in Capricorn, Mercury in Pisces, but Mercury in Pisces, I wouldn't say only depression. And a lot can happen with.
What would you say about Jupiter in Gemini and Mercury in Sagittarius?
Well, I have some other issues that can come up with those placements, and it's more about personality disorders and dissociating.
Okay.
And
not so much with the depression.
I wouldn't attach it to depression right away. I would attach it with some other issues. I don't want to jump into those right now. There are other issues.
Yeah, like right away I can actually think of two people who have moon Pluto in their chart, like moon square Pluto and moon opposite Pluto, that have been through depressive episodes right away. I can think of that right now. So I think that there's something there. I think that these aspects between moon and Pluto, does make it so that somebody does live in the past and is unable to let something go. Because that's what the moon does. The moon does represent the past. And Pluto also is unable to let go and surrender. So I think there's something about that, like you mentioned as well.
Yeah. And like I said, you did a really relevant question. Like, when do I see that this is, an issue, a disease? And, it's timing. A lot of times it's timing that defines the disease. So a lot of these things can actually be transits and not something in your natal chart. Because if we have a lot of these placements in the natal chart, it's probably something more of personality wise, and you can deal with dysthymia. But if you have, ongoing transits on your, triggering your natal Pluto, or triggering, a debilitated moon or Jupiter, that can trigger an episode if that's a moment in your life that you're shedding. If you're shedding something, it hurts. And you're mourning, your skin falling, So, I mean, we also have the fourth house events, because that's your foundation. If you experience some things in your early life there, if you have these hard experiences in your early life, it's going to be hard to build something on those foundations. So I would, also look for what's happening in the fourth house. But yeah, I mean, also sun, some positions of sun. I mean, Libra sun, it's crazy. I mean, I didn't find this information anywhere, but, in my experience, a lot of Libra suns go through depression.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. Yeah, I think that it's not an easy place to have the sun, which is supposed to represent your self-confidence. And the sun is not necessarily optimism, it's not like Jupiter, but then it's like your vitality. And I think, like you mentioned as well, what happens to the body when you're going through depression. And if the sun is in a position it's not so vital, then that can
Yeah.
definitely, be something quite physical.
Well, yeah, and I'm mentioning Libra Sun because the people I know that are Libra Suns, they've been through like really, really hard depression, dealing with death, thinking about death. That's another symptom of depression. And maybe, life doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah, and I want to just bring some human design and Gene Key's perspective into this. So there's theoretically, and from what I've observed, there's a channel in human design that's called, it's the channel 360. So gate 3 in the sacral and gate 60 in the root. So that particular channel does lead to a mutation in the body, like throughout the person's life. If they have this channel, they will consistently go through that kind of mutation. And so when a mutation hits, sometimes they have to be in that depressive state where they're not doing anything because their body's changing. So they can't be like, creating or making things happen. And that's an Aries Capricorn channel. That's what's happening there. So I think maybe you have that channel as well. But I've noticed that this is what happens to people who have this channel. Yeah. And I also wanted to touch on like Gene Key 1, which is Scorpio energy, because that has the frequency, the shadow of entropy and the gift of freshness and the city of beauty. So entropy is basically that state of depression. It's when you can't do anything yet because something is being like boiled, like it's water that's being boiled in a pot, and you can't open the top, the cap of the pot yet because something's happening, something's being boiled. And that can be that moment of sort of like feeling depressed because it's like you can't do anything, you have some energy, but you can't. So you collapse inwards. But then we have the gifts of freshness, which means that when you do get out of that depressive state, you can create beauty. You can bring something new, something fresh energy into the world.
So, yeah. And of course, Sun in the 8th house. And that's my placement. And I'm very, very, very aware of the consequences of having this placement. And your identity, just, the forming of your identity, you have to kill something in order to become something. So, and I know these are very hard words, but I think my 8th housers are going to have my back on this. It's very, very triggering for your identity, for your sense of self, to have to deal with these matters, these deep matters of Scorpio and the 8th house.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to share your personal experience of having any depressive episodes.
Yeah. I actually have so many of these aspects. And thank God I have Moon in Cancer, because I can just, let it all out and, work through emotions. Thank God. But, I have dealt with, again, issues in my 4th house. So early life, I've experienced a lot of restriction and people telling me what to do. So my personality didn't develop as it should because I didn't have space to develop. I have my Libra ascendant, which is, trying to please everyone and being diplomatic and being really careful, like with what I'm saying and sharing. Chiron in the 1st house, because I have no place to just, be myself and in my body, experience my body to the fullest. And yeah, I think I have some hard aspects to the moon coming from Saturn. And, there's a lot of things going on. And, of course, I've experienced depression, but I actually experienced depression as in dysthymia and, more like of a personality disorder, because I would associate myself with these feelings and this kind of melancholy.
Right.
And I've experienced like a lot of gain weight and gain loss, because my relationship with food and, everything that, has to do with gaining energy and preserving energy was just very confusing. And I developed some thyroid issues. I developed, gluten intolerance, because, everything you experience at the psychology level is going to transmute to your body. Your body is going to show symptoms as well. So coming out of that, and again, it's all of the art aspects.
How did you come out of it?
Yeah, all of the art aspects come with a gift. It's, when you have these challenging aspects, in order to get to that gift, you have to survive the challenge. And depression is about survival, because you're facing thoughts of death. So it is about surviving. So I overcome those issues when I embrace the power that comes from my sun position.
Wow. Yeah.
So, yeah. So I actually want to answer I want to be a little, I want to bring you into my astro chart and what I think worked really well. So, my Jupiter, looking at my Jupiter, is well placed, is in Aquarius in the 5th house. And my Leo house is the 11th house, so communities. And you have my sun in the 8th house. So overcoming depression has a lot to deal with. First of all, finding joy in expressing myself. So my Jupiter house, expressing myself and finding a loving community and loving groups that embrace the way I am. So Leo energy and, heart energy, love energy. And then, embracing that phoenix on the 8th house, which is rebirth. And rebirth sucks. It sucks. You die, and then when you're being born again, you're a baby and you're not sure what you're doing because you want to start something new, but you're new to things. So it's very complicated to understand this new phase of your life. So, the ruler of my 11th, so sun, is in my 8th. So my strategy was to dissect the matters of the psyche. So becoming a psychologist is something that helped me a lot. Understanding these matters, investigating, being comfortable talking about these things really gave me wings to get out of depression. And but it's really weird because when you come out of depression, and if you have been experienced melancholy and depression for a long time, you don't know what it is to feel safe. You don't know what it is to feel at peace. You don't know what it is to feel just a normal day, not worrying about something, not thinking about the past because you made your peace with it. And so if your head just becomes really silent, and this new reality, your body's, it's used to having those ups and downs, and now everything is quiet, and you still need to work on being quiet and being at peace and being okay with it. Like body, you don't need to show up symptoms because nothing is happening just because there's no crisis happening. You need to, like a kid, like a baby, you need to teach someone that, just got off depression, this new way of thinking and being, the state of peace, because it's new. And if you're dealing with this since you're a kid, this is truly something new. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's like you're basically deconditioning your body reprogramming your body in many ways so that it's not living on like coping mechanisms anymore, because that's ultimately what it's doing, is wanting to go back to the coping methods that it was doing because it had to survive, it had to cope. But now you don't have to. So you have to like, yeah.
Because your body was on reaction mode.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we become attached to high emotional states. And it sucks because it's like, it follows you, but you also follow the crisis. So it's very unfair to even say it. But, you know, as a person who have dealt with those issues, it sucks. It feels like, you know, when you get out of depression, like you can make a storm in a glass of water. That's a Portuguese expression. Like you can make something out of nothing because you're so accustomed to feel that kind of negative energy. Because when it's not there, you can create it yourself because it's what you're used to.
Right. Wow, thanks for sharing. So powerful. Yeah, so just going back a little bit to what you said about like the sun placements and Leo placements and Jupiter, would you say that looking at what these things are doing in your chart would help you to kind of move forward? Because like you mentioned that depression is when you are kind of reminiscing the past and you kind of can't get out of that. So would you say that these placements then would help somebody to move forward with their life, look towards the future in some ways?
Well, you know, if I was, you know, making a consultation and I had this person chart and I could work with it, I would go for exalted planets. So, you know, looking for the things that they thrive in doing. I would go looking for the Leo placement because, you know, that's very strong energy. This is your heart chakra, and we need love to heal from depression. I would look for that. I would look for Jupiter. If it's not debilitated, we're going to use it because this is where you can find your optimism, your expansion. And your sun, if it's not debilitating, let's see what you're thriving to be. And, you know, let's put that as a goal to achieve. So yeah, those would be some of the things. And of course, I would look at Chiron because Chiron is always that Achilles heel, is that pain that is not going away. So we always need to acknowledge that.
And then there's this other gene key, which is gene key 35. That's Gemini. And this one, I actually think it may be something that helps with depression. Because this one actually has to do with, I think it's a hormone in your body. What's that hormone that has to do with happiness? I think it's, is it, sorry?
I'm translating serotonin.
Yes, exactly. Yes, serotonin. Yeah, exactly. Gene key 35 actually is responsible for serotonin production in the body. So depending on how it's working, you can actually be somebody that has a lot of inner serotonin being produced, which means that you may, you know, go into like sadness, but then you come up, you know, you don't have that long period of sadness. But then again, if you are too much reliant on like external serotonin, which people actually do, like they go partying or they, you know, they have to constantly be around other people in order to feel happy, then that can actually be something that might, like when they're alone, they may just feel sad and depressed easily. So I think that was like interesting to take a look at there, those gene keys.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. I actually saw some information about the sacral gates, the bottom ones that can, you know, trigger depressive states and in different aspects of life. So yeah.
I think we covered like most of the things. Do you have any last messages that you want to give to somebody who may be dealing with depression or depressive states? How can they cope with it?
Well, first of all, go see a therapist, please. So let me tell you something. When you come to a psychologist for the first time, we have to always rule out depression first. because this is a very serious matter. If you're dealing with depression, it can lead you, well, to not survive whatever you're going through. So you can have other, like you can have anxiety, you can have bipolar disorder, whatever you have. If you have depression, we need to take care of that first, because, you know, it's fatal. And that's, you know, that's it. It's fatal. So we need to take care of that. So if you feel like, because you can still work a lot and do everything when you have depression.
Okay.
You just feel drained and you feel like nothing matters. But, you know, it's not because you're being productive that you're not depressed. So if you feel that emptiness in life, if you feel sad, if you feel like nothing brings you pleasure and joy, go see a therapist. You need help, and that's okay. If you're someone that has dealt with depression and doesn't want to relapse, you know, just bear in mind, you know, it doesn't hurt to see a therapist once in a while.
No, yeah.
And just, you know, embrace these aspects in your chart if you're familiar with them. And yeah, I think those are my final thoughts. Yeah.
Thank you, Adriana. Yeah, that's it for today. And if you guys have anything that you want to share about your experience with depression, you can leave in the comments below and chat with other people who are commenting. And, you know, there's a community going on here that you can always connect with other people. And I'll also provide you guys with Adriana's YouTube channel and TikTok links so that you can check out some of her content as well. I'll provide that in the description box and also in the comment section. And if you're interested in getting a reading from Adriana or some of the other astrologers in the team, they'll also be really, really happy to guide you. You can head over to my website, and I'll also provide a link to that in the description box below as well. So yeah, thank you, Adriana. I think that's it for today. And goodbye, beautiful souls. Bye.